4D Posable Ballerina Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish.
Hi everybody, in today's video I'm going to be showing you one of my favorite designs that I've ever done, and this is a 4D posable ballerina. So the ballerina can go from a high fifth to coupe, passe, and then the full extension. I absolutely love this. It is the coolest thing I think I've ever made in general. I know I already said that in this intro, but I had to say it again. So I hope you guys love it as much as I do. I'm a former ballerina myself, so any ballet design is always near and dear to my heart. And don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well. Bye! Bye!
I'm going to begin creating a baby boomer style background, so a French ombre, baby boomer, whatever you want to call it. So I started with a bright white at the tip and blended that up. And then I added a bead of milky white and then blended that up. So that's a color of white that's about half white, half clear. And then using a cover pink color, I'm going to be blending that from the cuticle down. So a cover pink, there's different cover pinks, and there's different opacities within them. You want one that's not very opaque but has a little bit of color in it. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but once you find a good combination of white, milky white, and cover pink that works for you, doing a baby boomer or a French ombre is a breeze and really quick and really easy. So yeah, so once you get that down, you're pretty much good to go. I'm going to encase it with a layer of clear acrylic to protect that ombre and make sure that it doesn't get filed and change at all, because I liked it. It was good. And then I'm going to be filing it into shape with my e-file, starting out with a coarse bit to remove any bulk, and then switching to a finer bit just to refine the surface texture, make it easier to work on top of. That French ombre is something that a lot of people think is really super difficult, and if you don't have the right colors of acrylic, it's just not going to turn out. So once you, like I said, once you get your little combo, then you're good to go. So then with a beige color, I'm going to start sculpting my stationary leg. So on my ballerina, I have the one leg that's just permanently placed. So I'm going to start there. So this is the thigh, and then I'm going to be adding her calf, so from knee down. Add the second section of her leg, and then with a very pale pink, I did add her point shoe at the end of her leg. I'm going to add a second layer of acrylic to her thigh and just kind of smooth that down the leg and blend the two starting little shapes that I made together, so it doesn't look like it's two separate pieces. It looks like it's all one leg. And then with a light pink, like I said, I'm going to be sculpting her point shoe. So I did this so that it would go all the way down to the very tip of my stiletto nail. So I wanted to go all the way and look like she's the same, she kind of is part of the nail. Not like she's a design on top of the nail, but she's actually part of it. Then I'm going to take more of that same light pink color, and I'm going to be sculpting her leotard. And I wanted to give my ballerina more of a real human figure. I mean, I don't want to say that professional ballerinas don't have a real human figure. That's not what I'm saying at all, so don't take it that way. But I wanted to give her a few more curves than your classic ballerina image in your head. I remember when like I said, I was a former ballerina, and there was a couple girls that I danced with that were very self-conscious because they didn't have that classic ballerina figure. And it's kind of stuck with me ever since then. And so I wanted to give my ballerina in this design a little bit more junk in the trunk, if you will. Then after I've got her leotard all sculpted, I'm going to be adding her head. So I started out with her face, and then I'm going to be adding her neck and her shoulders. And just like how I took her foot all the way down into the very point of my stiletto, I'm going to be sculpting her all the way up to the very cuticle area of the nail as well. So whenever you're doing a design and you want it to completely fill the nail like this, it takes some careful planning to make sure that it fits properly, because if you were just sculpting and everything was going really well, and then all of a sudden you realize you don't have room to add her head, that can get a little bit awkward. So just make sure that as you're working on it, if you do plan on filling the nail as I did, that you really carefully plan out exactly where everything is going to go. And it definitely would help to pre-sketch it out on a little piece of paper next to you. One thing that I've done that can help you is if you just, obviously if you're sculpting this on a hand, you can't do it quite the same, but if you set the nail down on a piece of paper and you take a pencil and you mark where the tip of the nail is and you mark where the cuticle area of the nail is, you can then move your ballerina, or you move the nail to the side and draw in your ballerina within those two lines, and then you can hold that piece of paper next to you and you can see exactly how big to make everything. And something like that can definitely be of assistance when you're working on a design like this and you want to be a specific size. On a nail form backing, I am going to be sculpting her arms, and I also added her hair with brown acrylic. I did not mention that as I was doing it, but then I'm going to be doing her arms. So sculpt the first arm, sculpt her hand on the end. And as you're working on the nail form backing, you can continue to adjust the shape of your arms for quite a while, a little bit longer than if you were doing something on the nail. You can sort of stretch and pull them a little bit more, so it gives you a bit more time to perfect the shape. So then add a little bit more, add the second arm. Try to make it as symmetrical as the first one between the two of them so that they're as close to the exact same as you can. Obviously, you know, you're a human and being exactly the same probably is just not going to happen, but if it's close, nobody would ever know. So there's the second arm, and then you can just leave those to set up on the nail form backing before you take them off. You want to make sure that they are completely, fully, 100% cured. Then on my nail form backing, once again, I'm going to be sculpting her mobile leg. So you're going to sculpt this in separate pieces. So you're going to start with her thigh and sculpt just that little section. And so you don't have to worry about doing anything on the calf or blending it out like we did with the other one. So just sculpt that first piece. Then you're going to sculpt her calf. When you're sculpting her calf, you want to make it a little bit longer, not a lot longer, but just a tiny bit longer than you actually want it to be in the end. So just sculpt that, because you have to bear in mind that a little bit of it goes underneath the thigh. So the knee area of the two pieces overlap a little bit. So if you don't have enough space to have a little extra there, your leg is going to end up being a little bit too short. Then after you have that, you're going to want to sculpt her other point shoe. So with that same light pink color you used for the first one, sculpt the second one. And then as you're watching the acrylic for the calf set, you're going to want to take something that you can create a little hole with. I'm using a floss pick, and just create a teeny tiny little hole. And that's going to be the start of your little mechanism that creates the poseable qualities of this leg. So kind of adjust that a little bit. Then we're going to go back to our nail, and I'm going to be gluing her arms in place. So just glue them however you want to pose them. And then after you have them in place like so, hold them in until they set just for a second. You can take more of your beige color acrylic and smooth out the transition between her arm and her shoulder. So just take a little bit more of that color and just blend it out. It doesn't take too much. You don't want to make it look very bulky or really big or anything, but just enough to smooth it out. And then after you have that on for both of those, you just kind of blend it out. And don't cover up any of her top either, her leotard. Then you're going to take a little tiny fine piece of wire and bend it into a very small U shape. In fact, I pinched my U shape with a little wire tool to make it really, really tight. Then you're going to want to just cut off any extra wire. It doesn't have to be nearly as long as mine was. Just cut it off so it's maybe 1/8 of an inch, the two ends of it. You know, you don't have to make them very long. But then string your leg, your calf piece, through the wire so you've got the little U-shaped wire going through that hole you made. Then place the piece of calf on to the back of the calf and glue down the ends of the wire. So don't put any glue near where that actual acrylic part of the leg is, because you don't want to accidentally glue that down so it's stationary. And just hold that in place until that glue dries. It takes a second, but then after you do that, pinch the wire so that it's completely shut on the farther end of it. So you've got a nice little closed shape there that will hold your leg in place. And then secure those little end pieces of wire with some clear acrylic. It doesn't take very much, but you just want to make sure that it's not going to fall off. That nail glue isn't the most reliable thing, so just place a little bit of clear acrylic to add some security to the back. Now I'm going to bend a piece of slightly heavier wire at a 90-degree angle, or as close to a 90-degree angle as I can, and glue the shorter end of that, so you just need a little bit, and then glue that to the back of the thigh. Just like so. Hold that in place again until the glue sets up, and then secure it with some clear acrylic going right across the back of that wire. Then drill a hole through the nail where the hip would be of the poseable leg. So the piece of wire that we just glued to the back of the thigh, the heavier wire, is going to go through the nail just like so. Once you have the hole, cut off the extra wire that's coming out the back. Try to trim it down as close to the nail as you can, and then glue a bead to the end of that wire so it doesn't come out. So you've got a solid piece that's going through the nail almost like a piercing. So if you want to think of it like a piercing, this little bead that we're gluing on is what holds the piercing in place. Just hold that, let it glue, set, and then you should have a mobile leg that you can pose and have fun with and do whatever you want. I secured my bead with a little bit of clear acrylic there as well, just to make sure that that wasn't going to come off either. Then on a nail form backing, I'm going to be sculpting a whole bunch of petal shapes with a combination of the same light pink that I used to sculpt the leotard and the point shoes, and then a little bit of a glittery burgundy. So I'm going to just sculpt a whole bunch of those little petal shapes, and this is going to be what we're using to form our tutu. So there's the start of it. And just keep adding piece after piece and start, try to make them as similar in size and shape as you can, but just let them set up there. And then after you have all of those done, you can start forming your tutu. So it's kind of good to imagine how full you want your tutu to be and how big you want it, how much you want it to stick out as you're sculpting these, so that you make enough in the beginning, because having to go back and make a couple more to fill in just is really time consuming. It's just easier to make enough in the beginning. But also you want to just be cautious that you don't make these too big where it makes the tutu stick out kind of awkwardly to the sides. Then take and individually glue each piece of the tutu in place across her middle. And usually tutus do have a slight downward slant to them so that they don't stick completely straight out to the sides, but in this circumstance, we do want them to stick completely straight out to the sides. That way, when her leg is fully extended, she's not running into her tutu. And obviously, if she was a prima ballerina, it would go a little bit higher up, and she'd have more of a stretch there than what this tutu will allow. But you can still get a pretty good little pose in. Then with black paint, I'm going to be adding some outlines and some facial features on her. Just go through and add little details with black here and there. I wouldn't overdo it. You want to keep this design looking very light and elegant, so just adding a little bit here and there is pretty much all you need for that. Just add little outlines. I did do some shading with some outlines as well, so I took some black paint and mostly across her torso. I added a few fine little lines to kind of give her some extra shape and some extra definition. Also with the black, you want to add the ribbons of her point shoes going up her leg a little bit. And it's up to you how far up the leg you want to go, but make sure that whatever you do on one leg, you repeat on the other. There's those few little lines I was mentioning that give her body a little bit more of a 3D effect to them. Add her facial features. I gave her closed eyes, which is something that, I don't know, if you're dancing and it's not a performance and you don't have to really worry about things, in certain spots, I like to close your eyes and just kind of enjoy what you're doing. And then I'm going to be applying a layer of gel sealer over the background just to make that little French ombre really, really, really shiny. And that does make that work that we did in the background stand out a little bit more. And then cure that, apply some matte top coat over the ballerina, and you're all done. I absolutely love this. Like I said, it's one of my absolute favorite designs. The fact that it is posable and actually you can even have it hold in certain poses is just amazing. I love it so much. I hope you guys love it as much as I do. If you do decide to do a recreation, please share it with me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love, love, love to see it, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!